Hi everyone, welcome to Taco Tuesday Politics, and today we're going to preview and talk about Massachusetts primary election, which is on Tuesday, September 4th, 2018. We'll look at the governor's race, as well as the U.S. Senate and the state's 9 congressional district elections. So let's get right to it. First, we have the governor's primary. On the Democratic side, we have Jay Gonzalez and Bob Massie. And the winner will be challenging Chris Baker, who's the incumbent, who's most likely going to be the Republican candidate. He's being challenged by Scott Lively, but honestly, Scott Lively's not much of a challenge, so I think he's probably going to end up taking it. And whoever wins from the Democrats, Jay Gonzalez or Bob Massie, will end up challenging him. So who is Bob Massie and Jay Gonzalez? Jay Gonzalez, according to Wikipedia, is a private health insurance executive, corporate lawyer. He's also the state's former Secretary of Administration and Finance. Bob Massie is a activist and author. He also has a doctorate in business administration. He is an Our Revolution candidate, so he is endorsed by the Bernie Sanders wing of the Democratic Party. Just to take a look at who's endorsing him, we have some members of the state legislature, and we have, of course, Our Revolution. He's also endorsed by the United Auto Workers Union. If we take a look at who is endorsing Jay Gonzalez, Gonzalez is endorsed by also members of the legislature. Also, he's endorsed by the Massachusetts Democratic Party, as well as the Progressive Democrats of Massachusetts. So currently there is a poll out there, and this poll dates back to June 22nd to June 25th by Mass Inc., and this was commissioned by WBUR. The polling shows that Jay Gonzalez leads Bob Massie 21% to 15%, but there's also 52% who are undecided. I think given the fact that the poll was done back in late June, and we're getting close to election, I think these numbers are much closer than before. I think the undecided is probably gone already, or very little. There might be a possibility that Bob Massie may take this from Jay Gonzalez. I think given the fact that progressive challenging the establishment and having pretty good results. I mean, if you take a look at Ben Jealous in West Virginia, Stacey Abrams in Georgia, Andrew Gillum in Florida, there's quite a lot of progressives who have actually taken on and beat the establishment. You also have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who did the same. And so in this situation, I think you might have a situation like that again, where there's a possibility that the progressive will actually beat out the establishment. But having said that, you have to take a look at the polling for Charlie Baker. If you take a look at the favorability polling for Charlie Baker, and this was done in late June again, his favorability is at 68%. If you take a look at Massie, he's at 15%. Gonzalez is at 16%. You've got 55 and 61% of the population don't know who they are. We have 2% that don't know who Charlie Baker is. He's a popular governor, and most likely he's going to end up winning. And that's why I think even though he's got a challenger, there's no way the challenger's going to make any headways against him. I think the Democrats will end up losing the governor's race, and the Republicans will end up retaining it with Charlie Baker. Okay, next we will move on to the U.S. Senate. And in the U.S. Senate, we have the incumbent, who is Elizabeth Warren. And she is going to be coming up against any one of these three on the Republican side. We have Geoff Diehl, John Kingston, and Beth Lindstrom. Of these three, I think Geoff Diehl has the best chance of winning the nomination. He's not very well known as well compared to the other two, but he has raised more money. He's raised $700,000 to Lindstrom's $70,000. Chances are he'll probably end up winning it, but it really doesn't even matter, because if you take a look at Elizabeth Warren, who he's going to be going up against, she's got a 79% favorability rating. Geoff Diehl has a 4% favorability rating. I mean, you can't even compare to that. Okay, so next we're going to move on to the congressional districts. We have 9 congressional districts. I'm going to just give you a little bit of information on the 9 congressional districts. They're all being held by Democrats right now, and it looks like that's probably going to be the case in November. There's one open seat, and it's District 3. Nikki Songus is retiring. Even though there's 9 districts here, I'm only going to take a look at 4 of them. I'm going to take a look at District 1, District 3, District 7, and District 9. These 3 districts are a little bit interesting because they all are being challenged by the progressive. In District 1, we have Richard Neal, and his challenger is Tahara Amatul-wadud. Amatul-wadud is a Our Revolution candidate, and she is endorsed by them. And so she is from the progressive wing, and Richard Neal is the establishment. You take a look at how much money they've raised, and we're going to look at opensecrets.org to get their numbers. And Richard Neal has raised $2.5 million. Amatul-wadud has raised $112,000. So the numbers are pretty staggering. It's pretty large difference and stuff like that. But I wouldn't say that she's completely out of it. There's really no polling. But if you take a look at some of the other progressives that have won out there, with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she had a lot less money as Joe Crowley, and she ended up beating him. I'm getting a theme for this year's primary, and it seems like the theme is the challenges within the Democratic Party, where the progressive is actually challenging the establishment, and that's where a lot of the excitement, I think, is coming from. So as far as this race is concerned, I think there's a possibility that Amatul-wadud is going to win over Neal. He's got quite a lot more money, so I wouldn't count him out, but there's a possibility. Okay, let's move on to the second district that I want to talk about, which is District 3. And in District 3, Nikki Songus is retiring. So we have a candidate for the Republicans, and that's Rick Green. He's running unopposed, and he'll be running against one of these 10 people. Even though there's 10, I'm only going to take a look at 3. And the 3 that I'm going to take a look at is Dan Coe, Rufus Gifford, and Juana Matias. And if we take a look at opensecrets.org again, we can see that Dan Coe has raised over $3 million. Gifford has raised over $2 million, and Matias has raised $536,000. Also, within here, the Republican has raised over $800,000. I think both Coe and Gifford will probably bring in a lot of votes, but the reason why I'm including Matias in this list of 3 is because she is a Justice Democrat. So she's the progressive wing of the party challenging the establishment again. There's some polling here, and it all shows her being behind, which I absolutely expect. The latest polling by UMass shows him 19%. Gifford is 13%, and Matias at 6%. But there's 29% that's still undecided, and that could change everything for Matias. So I think her chances are, there's a possibility, especially since she does support Medicare for all and free colleges and trade schools for everyone. I think that's becoming something that's popular amongst Americans, and I think that's a good opportunity for her. Okay, so next we are going to take a look at District 7, and District 7 is also a situation where we do have a challenge from the progressive wing, and this time we have Michael Capuano, and he is being challenged by Ayanna Pressley. Ayanna Pressley is a Justice Democrat, and so she is challenging again the establishment. And if you take a look at some of the endorsements here, you can see that Capuano is endorsed by Deval Patrick, John Lewis, and also the Congressional Bloc Caucus, while Pressley is endorsed by Justice Democrats. So if we take a look at how much money they've raised, you can see that Capuano has raised $1.7 million. He spent $1.7 million, but Ayanna Pressley has raised almost 900,000. So there's a differential, but not that big. So there's quite a possibility that she might take out the incumbent. And if you move down here, you can see that there's a poll from late July and shows Capuano with a 48% over Presley's 35%. But if you think about it, that's a difference of 13%. Margin of error is 5, and then you have another 15% of people who are undecided. So you basically have a leeway of 20%. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the last district, and this is District 9. And District 9, the incumbent currently is Bill Keating. He is being challenged by Bill Sombrillo, and they do have, I think, a Republican, right? Yeah, there is a Republican running. The Republican is Peter Tedeschi. And if we take a look at how much money these individuals have raised, Bill Keating has raised $981,000. Peter Tedeschi, the Republican, has raised $690,000, and then Sombrillo, the progressive, has raised $54,000. So that's quite a large difference there. One thing interesting about this race is if you take a look at the prior race in 2016, Keating won 55-56% of the vote. And he's never really won by large margins. It's fairly low. I think the makeup is probably a little bit different. And if he does lose against Sombrillo, I think it might be an interesting election between the Republican and Democrat. That's just kind of my take on it. So that pretty much wraps up my preview of the upcoming primary in Massachusetts this Tuesday. As far as the governor's race in November, no matter who wins, the progressive or the establishment, the current governor, Charlie Baker, he's going to win. He's going to end up retaining the governorship. On the Democratic side, the U.S. Senate, Elizabeth Warren will end up winning over her challengers. And then as far as the 9 districts are concerned, I'm fairly certain that all 9 districts will remain with the Democrats. But the 4 districts that I had talked about with the challenges from either Justice Democrats or Our Revolution candidate, those are going to be very interesting to see which way it falls, because I think that power struggle is very real and it's very relevant to this election. It'll be interesting to see how this all shakes out. Okay, so I've gone through most of these races in this primary with you, and I also gave you some of my opinions on these races. I would really like to know what you think about it. Which races are you most interested in? Who do you think is going to win? Please comment below. I'd really love to hear your thoughts. Okay, so that pretty much wraps it up for today, and thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share on your social media, because it really does help this channel grow. And subscribe and click on the bell for a notification of future videos. The next video will be the results from this primary, which is tomorrow. We'll probably take a look at some other issues and things like that in future videos as well. And so I hope you guys really enjoyed this. If you did, thank you. And if you didn't, let me know why.